efforts are on to form an interim government after weeks of anti-government protests, which started as a quota protest. It toppled its long-serving Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina yesterday. She is now in India. Now, Parliament in Bangladesh was dissolved. This was a key demand of the student protest leaders, who've also said they will not accept a military-led government. The country's army chief has promised an interim government and said that new elections will be announced. There's also a clamor from students for Nobel laureate Muhammad Yunus to lead this government, and according to reports, he has agreed to be the interim government's chief advisor. Now, on the ground in Dhaka, where we saw, dramatic scenes of violence, also storming of the Dhaka palace, so far this morning curfew was lifted, while many onlookers in the early hours at least continue to make a beeline for the Dhaka palace. The army finally barred their entry, and the focus currently is on bringing back a semblance of calm and order. So while there is some relief in Bangladesh, there's also a certain air of uncertainty and, of course, worry. Now, to talk more about this, we're joined by Kanwal Sibal, former Foreign Secretary. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us. And Dr. Neha Dwivedi, author of The Lone Wolf, which is based on the rescue of Sheikh Hasina and family from the Pakistan Army in 1971. Thank you for joining us. First to you, Mr. Sibal, a dramatic turn of events in Bangladesh. As I mentioned earlier, it started in July as a quota protest by Gen Z. And yesterday we saw, Sheikh Hasina fleeing the country. Now efforts are on to form this interim government. For you, what are the main concerns?
Well, we need to be very concerned because the fallout of what is happening in Bangladesh can have very deleterious consequences for us in various ways. Strategically, it will be a big setback to us because we had a very friendly government in Bangladesh. Yes. In fact, the general view was that with Bangladesh, we have the best relations with any neighboring countries. But more than that, Sheikh Hasina took some very bold steps in terms of linking Bangladesh to India in various ways: connectivity, transit, power sharing, development projects, what have you. The idea was to bring the two countries so close together in economic terms that even if there was a change in government in Bangladesh, it would not affect the overall depth of relations. There is criticism that we were supporting Sheikh Hasina eventually at our cost, but to my mind, this is a silly view. I mean, if a government is friendly to us, why should we push back that government? In fact, the whole idea is to have a friendly government and support a friendly government. But that doesn't mean that you're working against the interests of that country. In fact, the kind of projects that we are doing, the kind of relationship we have built up with Bangladesh has benefited Bangladesh as much as it has benefited us. Then there is the whole issue of instability in Bangladesh spilling over into our northeast. This is a big concern. Then we were able to secure cooperation from Sheikh Hasina and the Bangladesh government to curb militants and terror groups operating from Bangladesh soil against India. Now with the ISI and Islamists from the Jamaat-e-Islami getting some traction in the politics of the country, or more traction, then we'll have to see how this affects us. Then there is the whole issue of the security of the minorities in Bangladesh, especially the Hindu minority, whose numbers have declined over the years. And now again, with the Jamaat-e-Islami and the ISI playing mischief on the ground, we have to be very vigilant about how this plays out. Then there is our Act East policy. We have to then see how this will affect. As it is, the Act East policy has become a bit derailed because of developments in Myanmar. But now we have double jeopardy, if I may use the word, with Bangladesh also being in turmoil. Then we have so many development projects.
Right.
That are
so whole list of concerns, sir, yes, that you've named. But I want to go back to an earlier point that you made about how India was seen as very friendly with Sheikh Hasina, and concerns about India and the role in Bangladesh. There's talk. Is this a concern that in Bangladesh, among the politicians, among a lot of people, there is this sense of anger with India or unhappiness with India that, since now there's a lot of talk about Sheikh Hasina's dictatorial ways, how she'd become very autocratic, that we in any way, help that along? And is that a sentiment that concerns you in Bangladesh?
No, I think this is a very silly way of looking at things. After all, if we are criticized by the Western governments about democracy and human rights and institutional curves and curves on freedom of speech in our country, how do we react? I mean, should we have then counseled Sheikh Hasina, look, you are very good to us, but we want to interfere in how you manage your country and govern your country. So please ease up. Ease up on the opposition, do this, do that, do that. Open interference in the internal affairs. How would she take it? How would we take it if we were in her shoes? It was not our business. It was for her and her government to see what was happening on the ground, see the consequences of that. But it's more difficult than that because the BNP did not participate in the elections. There is absolutely no love lost
because
between
they felt it would be an unfair election. I mean, at that time, that was what was said.
Well, unfair elections, but we were not the Election Commission of Bangladesh. Sure. So what do we tell Sheikh Hasina? Please go and have elections, proper elections. We are monitoring them, this and that. This is open interference in their internal affairs. Why don't we accept this logic? Why do we sit on a high horse when it comes to people interfering in our internal affairs, and then we recommend that we interfere in the internal affairs of Bangladesh? We were not telling Sheikh Hasina, close the doors to elections for the participation of the BNP. It was BNP's decision. It was not our decision to counsel her. We were not her main advisors in this regard. Yes, we should have, and probably we did, keep our doors open to the opposition. I'm sure we did. But it was for the opposition to take autonomous decisions as to how they saw the internal situation.
Sure, I want to come back to this, very delicate balancing act now that India has to do. But Neha Dwivedi, your comments, it just happened so fast, as Dr. Jay Shankar said in Parliament today, that she arrived in India on short notice. Now, in your view, do you think it's possible that it might become a more permanent sort of stay here, a longer stay, because in the past as well, Sheikh Hasina has been in India on exile?
Okay, I'm sorry. I don't think this is something that I really can comment on about if she plans to have a longer stay. And of course, one's reading the news, and there is this whole conjecture about her going to London and so on and so forth. So I'm not very, I wouldn't think that I'm the right person to comment on this.
Perhaps an unfair question on that front, but yes, regarding Sheikh Hasina now, your comments on these, on how firstly the reading, did she get it very wrong? Now she's arrived in India, and one wonders what the future now holds.
Sorry, I'm so sorry. I didn't get you. Can you repeat again?
I was just saying that, now with Sheikh Hasina, these dramatic events that have taken place, it started in July, as we mentioned, as this protest. It led to her finally fleeing the country at such a short notice, arriving here. And she's had a tumultuous life. She has faced danger before. And so your comments on, what's taken place, as somebody who's actually written a book on the family.
I mean, I think as someone, as someone who's, kind of researched about this whole issue back in 71 and, how Bangladesh kind of grappled with, or East Pakistan of that time kind of grappled with trying to, come out of it as an independent nation, and the role that her father played in the entire sequence of events at that time, and how even after in 75, the entire family was assassinated. It wouldn't be wrong to say I do feel a little, sad about the whole, state of affairs in the government, in the country in general as well. It seems to me, when I'm looking at all these images that we are looking at and videos that we're looking at when I was researching for the book, and we would hear about things about, and I would read about things about Operation Searchlight, and I would look at images of this, and now to sit here, say 53 years later, and it seems like almost like in some morbid way, history repeating itself, and that's definitely a little sad for sure.
And it's very shocking to also, I think, see those images of the statue of Mujibur Rahman being vandalized, the manner in which
Yeah.
they are, it's absolutely, considering what, he's considered in Bangladesh and, here in India, and to see these scenes, your comments on that?
Yeah, that's definitely very, very shocking to watch, even on TV right now, whatever the issues may be with her government or her governance in general. Sheikh Hasina's someone who was regarded as the father of the nation, or the Banga Bandhu, he was known
Yes.
as, for him or his statue to be vandalized because they have something against the governance that his daughter has led. It's definitely very, very hard to watch, and also seems very unfair for his sort of that persona and his kind of image to be getting tainted the way it is.
And one wonders, was there some underlying dissatisfaction or anger towards him, or is it just mob mentality right now? Are you in touch with, people there? What have they been saying?
I'm really not in touch with a lot of people there, but I think that this is something that happens in general, right? There will be people who will have something against what's going, and there will be people who will be supporting the government or the governance also. And so I think I'm not sure if I should say that it's mob mentality. Definitely that has to be there for everybody to just kind of jump on the bandwagon. And again, like the images that we are seeing, some of them are quite disturbing. The way in which everybody seems to be going about things, the protesters seem to be going about things. A lot of those things don't really make a lot of sense, but I think, yes, it's also like the part of wanting to be a part of what's happening, sort of.
All right. Coming back to you, Mr. Sibal, I think that question is more apt for you. Sheikh Hasina here in India, it's unclear where she is going next. There's talk of UK, whether UK will take her. Do you think that possibly her having lived in India in the past in exile before, that it could become, she might end up here more permanently?
Well, before I answer that, there are two comments I want to make.
Sure.
One is that bringing down the statue of Mujibur Rahman reminds me of what happened in Iraq.
Yes.
Where absolutely a similar act took place, where they brought down the statue of Saddam Hussein. In a sense, these people, whoever behind it, were disowning the freedom struggle of Bangladesh. It is not simply against Sheikh Hasina. It is much deeper than that. And therefore, to my mind, I don't think it was student-led in that sense. It is led by those forces which actually were against the separation of Bangladesh from Pakistan. The other is that, what happened in terms of vandalizing the Prime Minister's residence. They've taken a copy from the book of the Sri Lankan mobs, who then set fire to the Prime Minister's house and vandalized that also. So this is what social media does. But with regard to your question, it is ironical that the acting chairman of BNP, Tariq Rahman, is an asylee in the UK. And now the ousted government of Awami League and Sheikh Hasina also seeks asylum in the UK. It is very, very ironical. It creates a very piquant political situation when two leaders who've been fighting each other for decades
both land up in the same
land up in the same country. I don't think how the British are going to manage this. Insofar as staying on in India is concerned, for as long as she wants to stay, we should let her stay. But I think she would also understand that her continued stay in India will actually pose a serious problem with managing in India-Bangladesh ties going ahead. Because from the Bangladesh side, it will appear as if India is manipulating the situation prospectively to its advantage by keeping her in politics and keeping her in play so that eventually she can come back to power. Although her son sitting in the United States has said that she's not going to return to power. But this will complicate future ties with Bangladesh. Therefore, a very, very careful, thought-out decision has to be made with regard to her future. But as long as she wants to stay here, we should be open to that. After all, we've had excellent relations with Bangladesh through her, and we owe something to her. The fact that she has been ousted is as a result of domestic politics in Bangladesh. It's not as a result of our relationship with her, and we shouldn't try and convert that into that kind of a narrative. But from purely, after all, what is this refugee law? If she wants to seek refuge in India, why don't we give her refuge?
But as you said, it's then a very delicate balancing act for us, and it could get complicated as well with whoever comes to power next in Bangladesh.
That's right.
All right, and I also want to come back to what you mentioned earlier about the conspiracy, because this issue was brought up at the all-party meeting as well. Rahul Gandhi asked a question regarding conspiracy, and the government sources have said that right now it's too early to say, but yes, there could be other players. So if you could speak, more on that.
Yes, it's quite clear.
Yes.
After all, if you look at this whole quota business, in 2018, this quota was removed by Sheikh Hasina. It is the High Court of Bangladesh. Whether it was done judiciously or mischievously, I can't say. In June, they restored it, and that triggered the revolt of the students. So it's not as if Sheikh Hasina should be accused of playing the quota game. So therefore, there has to be a deeper conspiracy behind this. The mobilization of the students, external forces behind them, so that this whole issue can be built up and could gather such momentum that the government could be ousted. Now, as you know, I don't want to say that the Americans have any role in this, but the fact is that the Americans have always criticized Sheikh Hasina. They've criticized her functioning. They've asked for more democracy in the country. In fact, they opposed the hanging of some of the people who were responsible for the killings in 1971. She has been dealing very harshly with the extremists. The United States has even sanctioned the rapid force that Sheikh Hasina government had created. They didn't invite her to the Summit for Democracies. So this must have encouraged certain elements within the country and in Pakistan that a favorable ground was being created for mobilizing an agitation against Sheikh Hasina. And Pakistan has always been there on the ground. And the fact is that there are a lot of elements in Bangladesh that have never really accepted either the separation of Bangladesh from Pakistan or good relations with India.